Okay, so 2-point perspective. So just to review the 1-point perspective, we got a horizon. That is the actual horizon. No matter what you're standing on or if you're squatting down, the horizon stays the same. And you have a point that everything recedes to. So if I were to create my point on here, doesn't matter where it is, I could make it right here. That's my point. And then all things recede to that one point. Okay. Everything goes back to that point. So if I have a square on here, or a rectangle, I'm going to create a cube. All of my points recede to that. This is a box that is infinity long. Goes all the way to my vanishing point. That's pretty cool. So if you can imagine, in your mind's eye here, what happens when you start to turn this box, this point right here begins to move, right? So if I were rotating this box in front of you like this, all right, this point is going to start moving this way. And then what happens is another point comes into play way down here that begins to affect or display what's happening on the side of the box that wasn't visible. Does that make a little bit of sense? Okay. Great, because it's really hard to explain. Okay, so here we go. So, 2-point perspective, I'm going to go ahead and create 2 vanishing points, if I can. There we go. Doesn't really matter where you put them. It will affect how the thing looks, but it's hard to predict. All right, until you've done it several times, it's hard to predict how it's going to affect things. And I'm going to work in outline mode so that I can see the centers of my ellipses here. So Control Y allows me to do that. And so let's say I'm going to create a cube shape here. Now I can't start with a rectangle. Rectangles are for 1-point perspective, really. It doesn't work, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fake it. All right, so if, let's say this point right here, let's say this point right here, we're going to be the top leading edge of my box, right there. This point is going to recede in both directions. Okay? I'll show you how. So let's say I've chosen the location of the top front point of my box. It's going to go from here to here, and from here to here. Okay, so if you can imagine, this is going to be the top of the box, right? Because remember, below the horizon line, I'm going to see the top of the box. Okay, now the leading edge of my box will be a vertical line. So how tall is that box? However tall you make this line. Okay, I can go ahead and get rid of this point now. Okay, so you can begin to see a box shape take place here and not the peace sign. All right. Now the very bottom of the box is going to do the very same thing. Both of these are going to recede to the vanishing point. Bam, bam. You see it starting to take shape there? You got the 2 front edges of my box like this. So you can see this is my top point right here. This is my bottom point, and these are receding off to the vanishing point. Okay. Have I lost anybody yet? Okay. I'm waiting a second. Any other questions while I'm waiting? You following so far? Okay. This is complicated. But it's kind of fun too. I don't know. Oh, yes, I agree with you there. It does require precision because if you get, one line off, it can ruin your perspective. Yeah, exactly. Okay. You got to speak up for me, Emery. Okay. Okay, so just make those two meet. Use your direct select tool to do it. Oops. Oh, I see. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, use your direct select tool. There you go. Now click on that point right there with your direct select tool. It's got to be your direct select. Okay. And now put it at the center of that ellipse. Right there. Now do the same thing to that one. That's why I use outline mode, because you can see the center.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Okay. So you're going to do the same thing there and the same thing there. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's got to be the center of that ellipse. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Okay. Everybody here? We're good? Okay. Travis? Okay. Excellent. All right, so how wide and how deep is this box going to be? How wide, tall, deep? We've decided on tall. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make an arbitrary decision. This is going to be the width of my box here. Okay? It requires a vertical line that goes between those two vanishing lines. Okay, so the lines that come off of here, right here and here, which point are they going to recede toward? The left one or the right one? So you're doing a left. Okay, who thinks left? Who thinks left? Just one person thinks left right here, correct? Okay, and who thinks right? 1, 2, okay. All right, so if I took the point from here to here, it's not going to make a lot of sense as far as how we construct it. We have to go from here to here to get that to actually work. So you can see now this box shape now begins to really take shape as it moves off into the distance, right? All right, and I'm going to do the same thing from this bottom corner because we have a transparent box. So do you see it? Do you see it happening now? You see that box beginning to take shape? Looks like a box that is moving off into infinity here. It's infinity long coming from this vanishing point. Now, I want to do some stuff to keep my confusion down. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come over here to this vanishing line. And I don't need it from here to here anymore and here to here anymore. So I could go in there with the eraser tool, but I'm fairly confident in my ability to grab that point and drag it to that point and have it stick. So that's just going to reduce the visual confusion clutter there. Does this make more sense now? As you look at it, it makes more sense that this is a box receding off into the distance? Cool, okay. So it did that. Now, we've got to give this box an end. It just can't go on forever. Okay, it's not fair. The rest of us, we pass, and this box is not allowed to go on forever. We have to decide how deep this object is going to be. If I made it this deep, it would be a very shallow box, wouldn't it? Right? I'm going to go ahead and make it more cube-like. So I'm going to give it an edge about like so. Okay, it's got to go from vanishing point to vanishing point. Okay. Emery, how you doing? Are you? Oh, excuse me. Oh, I see. Okay. So we need a line from here to here. So deselect first. Control Shift A. There you go. And yeah, click and drag down to that point down there. Good. Okay. And now you have to decide how deep you want this. So make a line from here to here that is vertical. Okay, so you're going to hold the Shift key while you do it. Because it's got to be vertical, and then it's got to meet that. No, it's got to go straight down. Right there. Do you see it? Okay. Now these points are going to recede off into that distant point right there. Okay. So you're going to make lines from that point to that point, and that point to that point. So deselect first. Yeah, deselecting is your friend in between the different actions that you take. That's fine. I'm gonna wait for you to catch up here. All right, so any questions so far? Are you seeing how this kind of works? You basically, you're taking points on one side of the object and receding them to the opposite vanishing point, taking points on the other side of the object and heading them towards the vanishing point on the opposite side. Yes? That's perfect. Okay. Now we need to decide how deep it is. So let's make a line from that one right there. Whoops. Yeah, that one right there. Click and drag. Nope. Right here. Click and drag straight down, holding the Shift key while you do it. And it has to meet that line. Yep. Just like that. And you're exactly where we are, except if I were you, I would use the Direct Select tool. No, that's the selection tool. You want to use the Direct Select. There you go. Now grab those points and drag them to their appropriate corners. Okay. Yeah. So there you go. It needs to go right there. Here? Yep. It needs to go to that point. Yep. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You bet. The most important thing is that it makes sense to you. Otherwise, you're going to start putting your lines and points to all kinds of crazy places, and it'll look like a what do you call it? Cubist drawing. Not in a good way. Yeah. It really takes practice. It takes working through it several times. All right, so here we go. I've decided how deep this box needs to be. So then I'm going to create a vanishing line from this point. Does it need to go left or right? By a show of hands, left. Isn't it the same? So left for me. Does it go left or does it go right? It goes right. You sure? Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, let's go ahead and make our vanishing line to the right. Do you see the top of the box now? There it is. Yay, top of the box. All right, so I'm going to deselect. And then this point, does it go left or right? It goes the same way, right? Yeah, no, I don't believe in trick questions. Tricky questions, maybe, but not trick questions. All that makes you do is mistrust the instructor. It has no benefit at all to learning, as far as I know. I'm never going to ask you a trick question intentionally. That's the important part. No, they don't. I know instructors who will do it, and it baffles me why they do. Okay, so we have a box, but there's one last line that needs to go in there to create our transparent box. Can you see it? The back corner, exactly. Okay, now this one's just a touch trickier. Now, if you have not got all your points in the correct place and everything's meeting up nicely, this last line will look a little funky. All right, what we need to do is where those two things cross, we're going to create a vertical line by holding Shift, and it should meet exactly where those two other vanishing lines cross. If you're off, that line will either not be vertical or it won't meet. Huh? You're off. So you've got some problems. Some stuff didn't match up. That's the indicator that stuff is a little bit off, that your last line doesn't actually match properly. So let's do our cleanup now. I'm going to go ahead and use my direct select tool. I'm going to grab this line right here, and I'm going to drag that to my back corner point. Bam. This line right here, drag that to my back corner point on the top. That helps a lot with the visual confusion. Grab this one, and this should match my back corner point. I can drag to that one. Bam. Okay. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I think that's pretty darn cool that you can create three-dimensional objects using 2 points in a line. All right. Are you with me? Is it making sense? Look. Good. Good, good. Almost done there, huh? Good work, Gavin. Yeah, we'll do that in just a second. Oh, so you forgot that back line that goes where those two things meet. That needs a line that goes to where those 2 points meet, where those two lines meet. So that back edge is what you're looking for. Okay. Whoops, you lost something. Yep. There you go. You got it. Nope. You're making an MC Escher. You got twisting perspective, all kinds of wacky stuff going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go to my layers and lock it, because this is going to become a guide layer for me. And then I'm going to create a new layer. This will be the one that I'm going to work on. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and still stay in outline mode for a moment so that my shapes are really precise. Okay, I'm going to need my pen tool, and I'm going to work on my back shapes first. We're going to pretend this is a transparent box. So I'm going to go ahead and create, it's almost a parallelogram back here, right? But it's not quite. If this were 1 point perspective, it might be. No, actually it wouldn't be. It's not isometric, which means this line right here is at a different length, different angle than this line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create my shape here, trying to be really precise. There we go. So I've got a shape here. I'm going to go into my properties and pick a darker color. So let's say I pick a dark green. Of course, you can't see it because I'm in outline mode. And I'm also going to change the opacity just a little bit. Let's say I change it to, let's say, 80%. If I toggle outline and preview mode by hitting Control Y, you can see I've got my first shape there. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Okay. Does that make sense so far? We're good? Okay. Are you all here at this point, or should I wait?
Did you put in a new layer?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've got my two layers here. One I locked so that I didn't accidentally move any of my guidelines, because moving one of those is bad. It's a technical term. Use it a lot in graphic design. Bad. I think of the Ghostbusters. Did you ever see the original Ghostbusters? And that would be bad. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my outline mode, Control Y. And using my pen tool, I'm going to do the very same thing on this back shape here. All right, my other back shape. Okay, Control Y again. And I accidentally made this a solid color, so I'm going to change that to, let's see, I change it to 80%. Whoops. Enter. There we go. Pretty cool. Starting to take shape. So you can sort of imagine if you had a glass box, then you've got sort of like maybe like a layer of paper inside the box up against those back two walls. That's kind of sort of how I imagine it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and deselect that, go back to outline mode. Now I want to create this bottom shape. All right, so I'm going to go in there with my pen tool, and I'm going to change my fill color. Let's say I change it to like a medium green. All right, I'm going to leave the opacity at 100%. Okay, it's going to be okay. Well, yeah, it's going to be fine. Heck, I'm going to change it. Put it at 80%. Okay. So there we go. So I've got three more shapes to make here. I've got a top shape. I've got the right front face and my left. Okay, so I'm going to go back to outline mode so I can see everything I've got here. I'll go ahead and create my top shape here, and I'm going to set this color to very light. Let's say I go down here to this yellow-green. What color really is this, Amy? Yeah, I'm asking you because I find that guys don't have the vocabulary for fine distinctions of color. Kind of a lime green?
I think of lime, I think of
That's not lime. This happens every time.
I would call it a spring.
Spring green. Okay, all right. I'll tell you my story here in just a minute about color. Okay, so here we go. I'll take my opacity down to 80% so you can still see some of my guidelines. And then go back to my outline mode. Deselect all. All right, so I'm going to create my front shapes here, and then I'm going to use the sort of a middle ground between those darker shapes and the darker colors and lighter colors. Set my opacity at 80% and do the very same thing over here. Okay. Set my opacity at 80%. And now I am leaving my outline mode. You can kind of see what has happened there. So you can see, maybe I need to make it all 70%, but you can see what's happening inside there, can't you? You can see the guidelines still at 80%. All right, so I'm going to show you another thing here. Let's say I wanted to change the back shape here. How do I get a hold of that shape to change it? Different color, different opacity, or whatever. Do you guys know?
I know you can use control click, but I usually
Yeah. Yeah, you could use layers. You could go into layers and open this up and find the right layer. That will absolutely work, okay? Quick and dirty way is to select the object in front and hold down Control and keep clicking until you get the back one. That is a really, really handy device, all right? That way you don't have to go in and open up layers. You can just do it visually. So I'm clicking on this top layer, holding down Control, and clicking until I get that back one. I'm going to go ahead and change my opacity to, let's say, 60% on all of my items so I can see my structure a little bit better. I'm changing it to 60. You do not have to if you don't want to. I just want to be able to see it. Yeah. Those two to 60. Ah, this is nicer.
0, right?
Sorry?
Because I'm at 100%, right?
I'm doing all of them
Okay.
at 60%. So that's pretty cool, huh? Is this your first ever 2D shape using 2-point perspective? Anybody ever do this in high school? No? Okay. Some high school programs do it.
I kind of done it on paper.
Okay. Yeah. Can't remember high school. It was too long ago. I believe you. Yeah. And that was, yeah, I'm done. Brain dump after that. Okay, so creating the shadow underneath of it is exactly the same. Let's pretend the light were coming straight down from on top. What it would create is more or less a squarish shape underneath, but because it's in 2-point perspective, it's not square. It's more of a diamond, okay? So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say the back corner of this is going to start right underneath the joining of these points right here. So I'm just going to go straight down a little bit. Let's say I start off with an ellipse from the center. All right, so that more or less is where I'm going to start my shadow, okay? I'm just using this as a reference because if I go into outline mode, it gives me an X there. That's my center point.
How do you get it to drag outwards?
Holding Alt.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Like I said, I do it pretty naturally. I try to remember. Alt is the one you do from the center, and Shift makes it a circle. All right, so I'm just going to use this for a moment. This is where my starting point will be. Okay, so this is going to be my back corner. I'm going to use, let's say, I'm going to use my line, come up here to my vanishing point, and now this needs to go through that back corner of my shadow. Same thing needs to happen up here. Okay, so on this right side, this needs to go through that back corner. Okay? So I can go ahead and get rid now of my ellipse. So this right here is the back corner of my shadow where those two things meet. Where's the front going to be? Well, I think it's going to be aligning with this right here. If the light is coming straight down, it's going to align with this point. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a hint here. Let's say I'm going to use a line. Let's say I just use a line here that goes straight down from that point. Okay? It's not going to make a lot of sense yet. Okay, but now from here, my vanishing point, it needs to meet this point here, or I'm sorry, it needs to meet that line, because this is going to be the very front corner of my shadow. How far does it go down? It's really according to your imagination, because we don't have any models to look at to see what a realistic shadow is going to look like in this place. All right, so I'm just going to put it there. That's going to be the very front corner of my shadow. And I'm going to create another line that meets it. Okay? So now I can go ahead and get rid of this guideline I've created here in the front. Okay. So you can see this shape, this diamond shape that's been created, is going to become my shadow. Right? I can go ahead and take my points that are down here and just meet those lines, clean it up a little bit. Right, drag that to right there. So that's a little easier, right? For your sake, I'm going to go ahead and hide my box for a moment. Wait a minute. Hide this, object, hide, select, okay, I'm a little confused what just happened there. It should have, oh, I had those locked. That's why. I can just turn that off. Okay, so you can see now, a little bit easier, right? This is going to become your shadow. Did that make sense? Kind of, sort of? Okay. So I gave myself guidelines in order to make that shape. That's what you saw with the ellipse, kind of that starting point. And then I had that line coming off the front edge. That helps me align my shapes better. So I can go back in here and on layer 1, go ahead and show all. Okay, I'm going to come down here with my pen tool and make my shadow shape. Oops. It wanted to meet that other line, which I don't like. All right, so I'm gonna just make my shape inside that for a moment because I don't want it adding to the other line. And then I come back with my direct select tool and pop those points into place. Okay. I'm going to make this black. There we go. And obviously, this black shape is going to go behind the box. You remember which key does that? Which key combination? Awesome. Control-Shift, left bracket. And now I can get rid of these strokes right here because I don't need them anymore. So we have a shadow beginning to take shape under there. It looks pretty darn realistic as far as its, placement goes. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of a Gaussian blur because shadows tend to be a little fuzzier than the objects. So I'm going to go to Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to turn on the preview and decide what feels right as far as radius goes. Somewhere I'm looking at like the 10 pixel feels pretty good. I feel like this is really too dark. So I'm going to take my opacity down. Let's say I took my opacity down to 80. Still a little dark. Take it down to 60. That feels pretty good. Okay, so this is how you do it beneath the horizon line. The rest of the assignment is you create one at eye level, which is going to bridge right over the top of the horizon line, and then create one that's above. And if you need to, refer back to the video because it's the same process. Always the same process. Any questions about that?
Do you care if we put each one on a different artboard?
I don't really care, no.
I think you would, but.
No, I don't really care in this. You know, if it reduces confusion, I would say go ahead and put it on a different artboard. Yeah, if you're able to. Yeah, all right, good question.